Okay, welcome back to the Docova channel. In this video, we're going to talk about toggles and sliders. Let's get going. Okay, in order to do this video, again, we're going to go into the Element Demos application. So I'm just going to open that up. Again, available in the App Store. Just add it and you can go through all of these examples. So I'm going to open up the form elements because toggles and sliders are form elements that you drag and drop onto your forms to use. They are UI or user interface controls. And basically what they do is they allow use right here, toggles and sliders, right after our last video, which was checkboxes, radio buttons, and download or drop down fields. So toggles and sliders, basically for a toggle button, it takes the place of sort of a radio button. So it's true or false, yes or no, on or off, that sort of thing. You see it a lot on mobile devices when you're setting properties or settings on your phone on or off. They'll give you a toggle that represents that something is turned on or off, for example. So let me click on the toggle menu item and that opens up the toggle view. And I'm going to delete this temp doc here. Maybe we'll create another one. Okay, so in this view, you can see I have some true and some on or off values in the form. And really these are just depicting a couple of toggle controls that are on the form. So let's look at them. So I'm going to create a new one. I'm going to go in here and type AAA. This is just a demo document. And basically you can see basic toggle, green on, gray off, because I chose those colors and we'll show you how to change them. So I have just an example down here, vibrate when ringing, auto brightness, yes or no, on or off, true or false. So I have that, and you can add labels on the two sides of them too, however you want to create these, but they're just a user interface thing, basically to handle that sort of binary selection for somebody, right, for a user. So here, for example, I'm just going to create a document called, in the subject line, I'm going to put AAA, and vibrate when ringing, auto. I'm just going to turn them both on, let's say, okay, and I save and close, and you'll see in the view I'm able to depict these two. So here's my AA document at the top here, and you'll see as we go along it's true, true. So I'm just showing in these columns in the view that I could depict that as true and true, or on and on, for example. It's just an example, and when I say on, I turned it green, so if we go back into that document in read mode, this is the way it looks. If I go into edit mode and say turn one of them off, say turn vibrate when ringing off, and I save and close, and you'll see when it saves and returns me back to the view, you'll see that the true is gone in this column, and in this column now it's off and on, and I turned off the color red. We'll do more of more view stuff in the future, but just to show you how to what the toggles look like. Now let's go and just see how easy it is to put a toggle onto your form for use. So I'm going to go in the app builder, into the Element Demos application, and I'm going to go to the forms, and then I'm going to look up the F toggle form. This is in alphabetical order, and this so you can find it too, right? F toggle right there. So I'm going to open it, move my face over. So you'll see that the toggles here are just fields on the form, or they just appear as fields on the form, right? And we call this not what you see is what you get, but what you see is what you mean. And we feel it's better to drop these in here as fields in that it's very understandable. So if I go over to the form elements here, you'll see that here's the toggle and the slider elements. And all I have to do is drag and drop a toggle over. So let me drag, so actually just as a demo, I'm going to go here, I'm going to add another row on this form, and I'm going to slide a toggle over, and you'll see it automatically gets toggle 4 because we didn't rename these, but it allows you to give it a name in the properties again. Just like any other field, you can give this a field name, and that's so that you can reference it with your JavaScript or with your style sheets if you do that for more advanced developers. Suffice it to say, you can style these toggles the way you want. So the on and the off color, so you saw that mine were gray and green, and you can choose red or purple or yellow, whatever you want. Of course, there is the color dialog that pops up when you choose that. And so suffice it to say, it's just really easy to for you to add toggles to your form to depict the ons and offs or the true and false type of things. And you just drag and drop them onto your form. Okay, so that's all you have to do there. Now I'm going to leave the forms open in the app builder as we go on and talk about sliders. So sliders here, sliders again are just a user interface or UI element that you can use to make your forms cooler, more modern, easier to use. And so I'm just going to create a slider form here just to show how they operate. And so you can see here that I have two sliders. Subject field here is just, again, just to enter a subject for, as you test this out, you can create documents. And so in this particular case, I have a horizontal slider. So you'll see as I slide it here, and I have a vertical slider, just to show that you can do horizontal and vertical. Also notice that the top one that I have here goes from 0 to 100. So I can control the upper and lower bounds of a slider. Plus the slider is tied to a field, and you can choose to hide and show fields or not. But in this particular case, you could depict this slider as picking a percentage, since I started at 0 to 100, for example, right? And you'll see, and it being, me showing that it's tied to a field, so that even if I go to the field here and I type in 25, then you'll see the slider move along. If I say 75, you'll see the slider move to that, or if I say 89. So the slider and the fields are tied together, which gives you a lot of, creative leeway to design your forms the way you want them, right? And you can also depict how big these sliders are in terms of their length and just how big the squares are in them. And so the same thing goes for this this vertical slider. It starts at 0 and goes to 250, just to show you that it doesn't have to be 0 to 100. It could be anything. It could start at 100 and go to 500, whatever your needs are. Okay, let's go and look at this field in the app builder. This form. And it's called F slider. Should be close by, right there. So let's look it up. And again, just like the toggles, to add a slider to your form is really easy in that it's simply depicted like a field. So here is the vertical slider, here's the horizontal slider. So let's go and do two things with this, just as a demonstration, just to show how easy it is, to change something in .gova. Instead of 400 pixels for the horizontal slider, I'm going to shrink it down to like 200 pixels. So I'm just going to go here and say that's 200. Okay, so that's going to be 200, so I shrank that down. And I'm going to add a line here just by hitting enter and adding a new row on my form here. And I'm going to put a slider in. So here's a slider. I'm just going to drag and drop it over. And you'll see it dropped the slider in here for me. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bind this. It says, see how it says bind to input? So I could give it a name. Bind to input, and what that means is for this slider, what field did you want to hook it up with, right? Because you want to hook it up with something, whether you're hiding or showing that field ultimately, because that's the field that you're going to actually grab your input from for programmatic purposes, or when you're looking in a view or something, you're going to say show that field, right? Because the slider is just a control. Basically alleviates the need for the user to type 89 in there. All they can do, what they can do instead is just use the slider, right? And so in this particular case, I'm gonna tie this slider that I'm dropping in here to the subject field because it's there. And this bind to input automatically shows all the fields that are on this form for you. So it's easy just to pick. You don't have to program anything. And the width, it's going to go 1 to 100 by default, and its width is going to be 250. And I'm going to say that it's orientation is horizontal. Okay, and I'm going to say that the handle is going to be black. The other ones were what, blue and green or something? Oh, I can't remember. Okay, so I'm going to save this. Right, we'll go back to the view in the application and create a F-slider document again using the F-slider form. And you'll see that my slider down here has changed now to be shorter. Remember, I shortened it from 400. It used to be wider, now it's shorter. And this new one that I put up here, which is black, and as I drag it, you'll see that it's tied to the subject field. So there's nothing I had to do except to say, tie it to whatever my value is, tie it to the subject field, or whatever field I say. Now, what's interesting is I'm going to close this. We're not going to save it. But I'm going to go back into this form and to show you an interesting thing here too. Now, what can be interesting is you can have a like computed for display field that's tied to the slider, so and make it really big. You know, make it big in the corner or something like that of your form, so that when somebody slides something over, a big number changes. You know, it can be done like that. It can be kind of cool looking for a modern application. But another neat little thing here that I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this slider, and I'm going to tie it to the text input 1 field, right, which is just that text field. And the thing is that it's tied to the other slider. So whenever I move the other slider, or whenever I move what's in the text input 1 field, it's what controls that slider, right? But now I've hooked 2 sliders to that field. Let's see what happens. Just going to save it. And just as you would probably expect, is that since the top slider, the black slider here, and the green slider down below are both tied into this basic horizontal slider right here, this field, that when I slide the green, it not only changes this field that it's tied to, but also the other slider. And if I move this slider, it moves. So they're tied together and watching each other. And so if I change this to, let's say 75 and hit enter, both sliders move. And so just to show you that, you know, it doesn't matter how you tie them together or whatever. Maybe you have a use for that, maybe you don't. But just to show you that there's things that you can do. We're giving you the raw materials that you can use to create your cool applications. And really easy to do that, right? And so you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in there and just, because it's easy, going to open up this form. I'm going to click on what I added there. I'm going to delete it. Why? Because we go and we demo DocOva through this application. And so I'm just going to set these things back to what they were. I'm going to go to my slider. It used to be 400 pixels instead of 200. And you'll see I'm back. I'm going to save that. And now I'm back to where it was. Simple. So that's it for just those 2 UI controls, toggles and sliders. It's just different ways to, you know, do the yes, no, the true, false type thing, or to, you know, allow a user to use a slider instead of enter a number into a field. It just makes your applications more modern and cooler. Try them out. All right, so thanks for joining me. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification bell, like or dislike if you want, and above all, you know what, leave a comment or leave a question below. And we'll try to get to every question that's asked and give it an answer. I've got a bunch of guys here that are really smart, and we'll answer those questions for you. All right, that's it for now. Catch you on the next one.